So, when did the Catholic Church actually begin? Hey guys, it's John sitting here in the studio sipping my fabulous mug of John's Joe coffee. Mm. Hope you guys are having a fantabulous day. A couple weeks ago, I put out a video about the 10 falsehoods of the Catholic Church, or 10 of the falsehoods of the Catholic Church. There are many more than 10. But I wanted to come back and respond to a lot of the comments that you guys didn't get a chance to see. One of the things that I'm very specific about on my channel is if you can't deliver love on my channel, then you can't be on my channel. And I had a lot of profanity and hate thrown and slanders and name calling from a bunch of Catholics who really didn't like the fact that I pointed out 10 falsehoods of the Catholic Church. But by far the number one thing that they were protesting the most was my claim that the Catholic Church started in 590. Now, what's really interesting about that was they are arguing and screaming and hollering because they say the Catholic Church started with Peter. And so let's talk about that because, you've been told the Catholic Church started with Peter, right? I mean, that's really what the whole argument is that the Catholic Church is the only way. But let's talk about what history really says. So what if I told you there was no such thing as Catholics right after Jesus died? To understand this, you have to separate history from religious spin. Early Christianity, after the crucifixion, after Jeshua's death, followers, they weren't called Catholics. They were called Christians or followers of the way. Now, the way is interesting because now if you look at this out of the context of Christianity or Catholicism, that's what the Tao means. The Tao means the way, right? So they're talking about the way to live your life. They're not talking about a Christian or Christianity because at the time, he was not considered the Messiah. He was considered an amazing man who was teaching the way. There was no organized denominations at this time, just communities of people who were discussing the way, discussing what he was teaching, and bringing it into spaces in communities gathering around what he taught. The term Christian first appears in Antioch in the book of Acts 11:26, but there's no mention of Catholic structure. The retroactive claim of apostolic authority, the Catholic Church tradition claims, it claims that there's an apostolic succession from Peter, but there is no biblical or historical record of Peter being the Bishop of Rome. That was a retroactive adding to saying that, look, he was the first Catholic Pope. Upon this rock, you shall build my church. Interpreted later, was used to build a papal authority, but it was never used in the time. Christianity was a movement, not a monarchy. It wasn't a structure created around Jeshua's teachings. It was literally a movement of the way we step into our world, the way we live into our world, the way we love one another. All those comments and concerns had nothing to do with loving one another. There was nothing angry or judgmental about my video. What there was a list of facts. The word Catholic originally is used by Ignatius of Antioch around 110 AD. So now we're talking, 70 years. You hear me talk about, the Bible written 70 to 200 years after the crucifixion. Here's real proof of it. The first Catholic was used by Ignatius of Antioch around 110 AD. But it was still not a church. It was just, this is the universal teaching. This is the way, right? The formal structure of the Roman Catholic Church didn't emerge until Pope Gregory I in 590 AD. This is well documented even by the Catholic Church. But the teachings of the Catholic Church are a contradiction because they retroactively claim that all of the disciples and everything there were part of the Catholic Church, whereas that is not in any way, shape, or form backed up by anything other than Catholic texts. During the Gregorian reforms, they start to structure the papacy. They start to create Roman Catholic doctrine. They introduce concepts like purgatory. They create the concepts of missionary mandates and monastic systems. The church was very much not only religious, but political. It strived for power and politics. The empire of the church aligned with political powers. It aligned with Roman authority because that's who was leading it. The Catholic Church became left its infancy in 590 AD. That's the 6th century. Prior to that, people who followed the way were often called Christians, depending on whether they were Greco-Roman Christians who believed in the Messianic tradition. Other than that, people were talking about the way. And now, a quick word from our sponsor. Coffee Time with John. This channel runs off coffee, so get your coffee and tea at johnsjoe.com. And then after Constantine legalized Christianity in 313, now let's just say that again. Constantine legalized Christianity in 313. So prior to that, there was no Catholic Church because it wasn't legal to have a Catholic Church. It wasn't legal to be Catholic. Christianity was legalized in 313, the 4th century. By the time of Gregory, it became a big political and religious system rather than a spiritual one. It was something about deriving power and pushing authority. And they did this with a retroactive storytelling. Peter was the first Pope of Rome. Not true. It doesn't show up anywhere else except for in Catholic writings. And those Catholic writings have been manipulated for thousands of years. Catholic authority was given specifically to solidify control over the believers. The Nicene Council was brought together to formalize the belief systems of Christianity, not Catholicism. They brought it together to try to get it organized so that we all can be on the same page, so that we can, have this authority over our followers, over our believers. Now, why does this matter to a recovering Catholic? Understanding the history empowers you to reclaim your personal faith. Without inherited guilt or control, you suddenly have this ability to be the way. You're not leaving the Church of Jesus, the one that Jesus started, because the Catholic Church was not what he started. True Christianity, if you believe in Christianity, which I don't believe in Christianity because he was a man, not a deity. He was not a Christ or a Messiah. He was a man who found the divinity within himself and was sharing it with us. And if you just simply read the red letter words of the Bible, you will hear exactly that message. The kingdom of heaven is within you. Ye are gods. You can ask a mountain to move, and it'll move. Nothing's impossible for you. Greater works than I have done, you will do. True Christianity, is, according to Jeshua, was love and service, personal connection to God. There was no middleman required. There was no church required. There was no idea that you need to have a structure and the sacraments and the rules and the authority and ring the bell and listen to the writings and none of that was there. It didn't exist, and that was all formalized by the Catholic Church in the 6th century. It's continued to evolve since then. When Dante wrote his Inferno in the 1300s, the whole vision of hell changed within the Catholic Church. This concept, and the reason these people were very angry with me is because the Catholic Church has told them that they are the universal faith, that Peter was the first pope. There was no, their own leader, Constantine, made Christianity legal in 313. Christianity legal, not Catholicism. It wasn't legal to be a Christian until the 4th century. And then the actual formation of the Catholic Church happens in 590 with Pope Gregory. My friends, when you look at history, think of it this is truth, and the truth will set you free. And so will historical accuracy, because the historical accuracy is the truth. It's showing you that, look, this is what really happened back then. And the church is forcing us to believe that they are the true faith, the universal faith. And the word Catholic, that means universal. And then when it was formed into the actual physical Catholic Church. That was in the 6th century. Looking back on history without a religious eye gives you the ability to go, oh, that's not true. That's another falsehood, right? But I wanted to make this video because so many people were angry with me for saying the church started in 590. Well, the church started in 590. That's the reason I'm saying it, because it's true. And Christianity itself, like I said, was not legal until 313, and it was made legal by the guy who really was instrumental in creating the Catholic Church later, even though he wasn't even around when the Catholic Church was formed. It was just about Christianity at that point. People want to argue the fact that this 590 thing, but what they're actually arguing is the dogma that the Catholic Church has given them. The divisive, angry, we are the only way, we are the universal truth, and the rest of you are wrong. And that is harmful to the world. It's not loving to the 70% of the world who aren't Christian. Of the remaining 30, it's only the 10 to 15% that are so devout to the inerrant Word of God that is a fallacy within itself, because there's so many different versions of the Bible. And the earliest one, the Codex Sinaiticus, when they found those texts in St. Catherine's Monastery, every page had edits. There is nothing that's inerrant. There is nothing that is the universal Word of God. You want to find the universal Word of God? Open up all the books, put on your love goggles, and read the loving parts. You will see a beautiful truth found in the Torah, the Bible, the Quran, the writings of Buddha, the writings of Krishna, the Bhagavad Gita, the writings of Baha'u'llah. You will find universal truth if you focus on the loving parts. Second, you start focusing on the fearful parts, they all say something different. The fearful parts are of the mind of man. The love is of God, because God is love. And that's my thought on this. You guys have a great day. My friends, reclaim your faith. Step into the way of being love, and release the dogma and the guilt-laden ideologies of the Catholic Church that its followers don't even understand the history of. And you guys have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon. See ya. Bye.